Let's discuss scoring now. AWA session and IR session scores will not be included in your total score of 800. So AWA score will be ranging from 0 to 6 with an increment of 0.5. And IR section will be having a scale from 1 to 8 with an increment of 1 point. And your math section will be from the least will be 9 in terms of points. It will be between 9 to 60 points. Verbal will be the same from 9 to 60 points. And if we talk about the score, the minimum score for maths will be 100 and the maximum score will be 400. It will be same for verbal, minimum score 100 and maximum score 400. If you look at it, your points will be converted into the score out of 800 marks. Now, there are some important points which you should know before going for the test. Let's discuss a case here. There are two students. The first student has answered 25 questions correctly in maths section and 6 questions wrong. And second student has answered 25 questions correctly and 6 questions are left unanswered. So who do you think is going to get better marks in this case? If you look at the score, student 1 is going to get far better score than student 2. It's because in Gmat, even if you don't know the answer, the best practice is try to give some answer. Never ever leave a question in Gmat because if you leave a question, the system will analyze it that you don't have proper time to attempt the question. So because of that reason, whenever you are running out of time, try to give some random answers to complete the test. Let's discuss another case. There are two students, student 1 and student 2. So I'm dividing maths here in 3 parts, like you will be having your maths divided into 3 parts, and same applies for verbal section as well. I'm dividing it like 1 to 10 questions, 11 to 20 questions and 21 to 31 questions. So for example, the student 1 answered 10 questions correctly in first to 10 questions, and then he answered 10 questions correctly in the second part and 0 wrong. And in the third part, he answered 2 questions correctly from question 21 to 31 and he made 9 wrong answers. So totally he answered 22 questions correctly and 9 wrong answers. Similarly, student 2 answered 1 question correctly and 9 wrong in first part, 10 correct and 0 wrong in second part, and for third part he answered 11 correctly and 0 wrong. So as a result, he corrected 22 right answers and 9 wrong. Now can you guess who is going to get better score, student 1 or student 2? So even in this case, student 1 is getting far better score than student 2. Why? Because as I already told you that Gmat is an adaptive test. Adaptive test question wise. So when a student starts his test, the level of difficulty and the scale move accordingly. So suppose if you answer the question correctly, your scale will be increased. And whenever you give a wrong answer, your scale will be down. So because of this thing, it is an important point which you have to keep in your mind. It's like beginning questions or the initial questions carry more marks. Always try to be more cautious towards your beginning questions. Try to answer most of the beginning questions correctly. Let's discuss case 3. So if you look into your exam, there are some experimental questions. So I can say out of your total questions, 1/4 of your questions are experimental. Suppose if you look at your IR section contains 12 questions. Out of 12 questions, 9 are real questions and 3 are experimental questions. And in maths, you get 23 real questions and 8 experimental questions out of 31 questions. Coming to the verbal question, 27 are real questions and 9 are experimental questions. So you can observe that in every section, 1/4 are the experimental questions. So for the experimental questions, even if you are giving the wrong answer or either you are giving the right answer, you are not going to get any score for experimental questions. But the worst part is that you are not going to identify, or it is hard to identify, the real and the experimental questions separately. So the reason to add experimental questions into your Gmat test is to segregate the questions based on the difficulty level. Suppose if Gmat is considering a question and most of the students answer it correctly, So Gmat is considered as easy, but if most of the students are answering it wrongly, so Gmat will consider it as a tough question. So this is mainly for segregation purpose. That's why Gmat is adding such experimental questions into your Gmat exam.